Oseh Shalom Bimroma Hu Yaseh Shalom Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu
Thank you, Noah. That was really beautiful. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'Imru Amen. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens let peace descend on all of us, on all of the people of Israel, and on all the world. And together we say, Amen. In the song that Noah just sang, there were two wonderful lines. We ask for peace, and we should also say health on earth. And we raise our voice and we say, Amen. My dear friends, in just a few moments, we're going to be looking at the story of the golden calf. We'll focus on this story because the story of the golden calf is a story of how people can react with fear and uncertainty. And how people can react when fear and uncertainty overcome rationality. What's the situation? Moses has been up on the mountain for many, many days. The people were afraid. The Torah tells us, the Bible tells us, when the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered against Aaron and said, "Come, let us make a God who shall go before us, because that man Moses, who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what happened to him." And Aaron said, "Take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, your daughters, and bring them to me." And all the people took off their gold rings that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took them, he cast them into a mold and made it in, as you know, to a molten calf. And then they exclaimed, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." And when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and he announced, "Tomorrow shall be a festival of the Lord." And early the next day, people brought up burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being. And they sat down to eat and drank, and then they rose to dance. And God spoke to Moses, saying, "Hurry down. Go down this mountain, for your people you brought out of the land of Egypt have acted disgustingly. They have been quick to turn aside from the way that God commanded them. They made themselves a molten calf. And they bowed low to it and sacrificed to it, saying the words, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." So as in their fear, they adopted an attitude of being a victim. They were victims first of the Egyptians, and now in their minds, even though they were free, they were still victims. Fear had got them. Fear had gripped them to the point where they could no longer think clearly. They could no longer have trust in God. They could no longer be grateful for the basic facts that they were not slaves anymore and people were not trying to kill their kids. They were overcome by fear. They had a mentality of slavery. And that mentality is the mentality of always being a victim. Always being a victim. And it raises its ugly and toxic head. What they needed to realize was that as Jews, they were no longer victims, but they were under God's leadership and God's prophet Moses. And in a way, they were no longer victims, but they'd become victors. At this particular time, my friends, we live in a time when too many of us adopted that fearful attitude that was so present 3,300 years ago in the wilderness. We've adopted an attitude of being victims. Victims. The coronavirus has produced a worldwide crisis of confidence, a creeping sense of uncertainty and anxiety. People are not only worried about their own health, the health of their kids, the health of the ones they love, but also what happens to the economy. By the way, yesterday I Googled the words fear and economy and got 57 million hits. 57 million hits. So this time, my friends, if you're joining us via live stream, we wish to tell everyone here and all of you there that your presence here is so important. This is a time when we need to affirm the value of being part of this Jewish community. This is the perfect time to show how important community is. This is exactly the time where even though we might be physically separated, we need to be there from each other. As a community, we need to reassure each other that no one is alone in this time of fear and trepidation. As a community, we need to give to those in distress our moral as well as our practical help. We need to underscore the role of institutions such as this to provide a safe haven. In this case, a communal refuge for encroaching woes. But more than that, because we're observing Shabbat now. And Shabbat is a time, the seventh day is a time when we should be adopting a spiritual practice of letting go of our fears and our toxicity. Jewish prayer says, Elohai neshama. Oh God, the soul that you have given me is pure. So what is today about? Today is about cleaning our souls. In Yiddish, we would call it getting rid of the schmutz, getting rid of the dirt, the junk. This is another time of saying we're purifying ourselves, not only with the squirtiness of hand sanitizers, but with the spirituality of what's on the inside. This is a time to detoxify ourselves from all of those negative thoughts that we had in the last week, from all of the negative things that your parents said to you, from all of their worries, from all of their fears. This is a time on Shabbat, this day of rest, to experience peace of mind, or what Jews call shalom. I want to get rid of those toxins in my mind. There's so many of us who might feel badly. There's so many of us, if you look at the news, this is one thing about the news right now. Used to be if you wanted the news, you had to look at this station or that station. For the most part, you can get it on all the stations now, whether it's Fox, CNN, MSNBC, for the most part. But you look at that so much that you might get the feeling badly that this virus is just too big. We can't overcome it. The other night I was going to bed, and my wife said, "You're watching CNN before you go to bed? Are you crazy? You're mashugana, okay? Put on something else. Read a book. Don't think about the virus as you're going to bed." Again, we have to rid ourselves of our fear and our toxic thoughts. You know, because toxic thoughts eventually become like toxic waste. They can contaminate our lives. Again, it's not just about the squirty things. They can affect our self-image, our attitude, our level of self-confidence. Toxic thoughts can become who we are. On Shabbat, therefore, we need to realign our minds to become more like a sponge, sucking up all of God's blessings. Because despite everything, today tells us that your attitude needs to be an attitude of gratitude. You know, don't look at what could go wrong next week. Let's turn that around and think about, well, what could go right? Don't focus on what might not work out. You might have, for example, a big test next week and you don't have to take now. I'm not promising. Okay? Don't focus on what might not work out, but what could work out. Think about this. Oh, it's so great. With all of this schmutz, with all of this dirtiness that's going on, with these little things that we can't see, it's springtime. This is the time when the seed which has been dormant since the falls are now beginning to be born again. The Kabbalists, the Jewish mystics, speak of this as a time when in the spark of God within us is allowed to flourish. Perhaps at this time of the year we should be like that spark. The spark as being a seed of our own potential. Think about it. There are so many things that we might be able to do, both as individuals, as a people, as a nation, to help others. So many things we might be able to do if we just detoxify and reconfigure. If we could just replace our fear and our feelings of fear with feelings of potential. If we could just replace the feeling of despair with the feeling of hope. We need to guard our minds, folks, from the negativity of fear and self-defeat. Shabbat is a time to do this. Let this, on this Shabbat, be a time when we rid ourselves of our low self-esteem, of our bitterness, of our words from condemnation from others, and most importantly, our fear. So a few specifics. What are we doing here at Temple Emanuel to flatten the curve? As much as possible, we are going to try to create a congregation without walls. When we're in the building, we have additional cleaning and other measures. Our religious school has been canceled, but the preschool is continuing. As of next week, all of our services will be live streamed. And if you belong to Temple Emanuel, you should know that if you think that you've received emails in the past, and there's been too many of them, you ain't seen nothing yet. Because this week we're going to be in touch. We're going to be in touch through emails and all sorts of things and phone calls. The very nature of our position as rabbis of this holy congregation is changing drastically. Yes, we've canceled senior activities, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to be in touch with our seniors. Today, we had an adult ed course for the first time on Zoom. Our Hever Torah, our Melton courses, all of our adult eds, as much as we can do them, will be via the internet, via Zoom conferences. There will be more cancellations, but we will continue to be a community. Quite frankly, social distancing is not the Jewish way. For Jews, we're supposed to get together and have 10 people in a minyan in order to pray. But we're going to need to be very creative here. How will we maintain contact? So I say the bottom line is basically, whether we're Jews or not, we as Americans and as citizens of the world need to learn how to love each other a little bit more. And that means if you have a cell phone that your father's paying for or your mother's paying for, and you don't call your grandmother, don't be surprised if they take your cell phone away. Do you understand? That's what we Jews call the Torah of cell phone, the commandment. That means we got to reach out. We got to say, I love you. We got to call each other more. To people in Temple Emanuel, call Rabbi Koren or myself if you need us. You can call us to yell about the situation in the world. You can call us for a pep talk. Call us. And we're going to call you. We need to do everything in our power that we can to remain safe and healthy. But let us recognize, again, I'm coming back to this, that every time that we dwell on the negative thoughts, and there are many things to be negative about, but every time we dwell on the negative thoughts, we are freeing them, giving them a new life, and making them more part of who we are. And so instead of dwelling on these things, we just have to merely turn them around. Just say, nope, I'm not going there. For one day, particularly on this Shabbat, I'm not going to fear, but I'm going to find courage. I'm going to find courage. I'm going to find strength to confront the challenges of the week that is to come. The Sabbath, Shabbat comes to tell us that there's potential, tremendous potential in next week. And that it probably could be, despite everything, better than what we think. And it all depends on you and me. The rabbis told us, Kol ha'olam kulo, Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav said, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar ma'od, the whole wide world is a very narrow bridge. I've already said this 6 times in 24 hours because I think it's the most profound teaching that we can have right now. The world is a very narrow bridge. You know, up at, what's that, Grandfather Mountain, there's a bridge. A rope bridge. You've been. It's all of you saying I've been on that bridge. Woo! When I went on it, okay, and I looked over to the side, I got the heebie-jeebies. Okay, and I looked on this side. I was afraid it was going to fall off on this side. I was afraid it was going to fall off on this side. But what did I have to do? I couldn't look over there. Have you been to that thing? Oh, it's really something. It takes a lot of courage to go across that. Okay, but I go across that thing. It's swinging like this, and okay, but what do you have to do? You have to keep your eyes forward. Keep your eyes forward so you don't fall off on this side and you don't fall off on this side. And then Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav said something else. V'ha'ikar. But the main thing, lo lefachad klal, it's not to have fear. Yes, the whole world is a very narrow bridge. You can fall off on one side or another, but the main thing is do not be afraid. Do not have fear. You know, it's my prayer that despite everything, that next week can be good for all of us. But I suppose the thing I pray for more than anything is the strength and the courage to face the week with hope and not with fear. So in just a moment, Noah's going to read for us the story of the golden calf. And I can tell you this right now, I don't want to be among those people who stand at the bottom of the mountain, who are overcome by their fear, their self-doubt, and their toxicity. I want to be those people who go up with Moses on the mountain. I want to be those people that will have the strength to meet our challenges and to overcome our fears. I want to be one, and I hope you do too, who is willing to ascend the heights in the midst of this crisis and to become all that God truly means for us to be. It's my prayer that God will bless us. Bless us with the ability to conquer our fears and to confront our challenges with grace, strength, and dignity. May the coming week be one of health and shalom for us all, And as Noah sang, Oseh Shalom b'mromav, may the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens, let peace descend on us, on all of the people of Israel, and on all of the world. May peace and health descend on us. And together let us say, Amen.